What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Own Her Power podcast, brought to you by Leadership Athletics. I am your host, Coach Ashley Carter, and I'm so excited that you are here with me again today. So I hope that so far you've enjoyed episodes 1 and 2, and I'm excited to bring to you my first Power Play episode of the year. So in today's episode, what I want to dig into a little bit is this idea of comparison. So in most cases, even when I teach mindset coaching, I spend some time talking to our athletes about how comparison creates this negative connotation of how we live our lives. It creates this space where we can't actually use comparison in a way that might actually be helpful to us. So we've said that there are about 44,000 thoughts to 77,000 thoughts that you have in a day. And for majority of people, 80% of those thoughts are negative. So when we have these thoughts of comparison, we often think of them as something that feeds what we call our automatic negative thoughts or our critic. And when we feed our critic, we're feeding this bad wolf that's inside of us, the one side of our brain that keeps negativity in. And so as I've been going through this process of teaching mindset, I've been kind of using that concept in that way. However, recently, I started to think a little bit more about the concept of comparison. And so I want to go a little bit deeper in that with you today. What if I told you that there may actually be opportunities to use comparison in a healthy way as an athlete so that you might be able to open doors and create new paths towards your greatness? Like, how would that actually make you feel if you realize that, hey, maybe you can actually use comparison to help you get to where you want to get to? So let's talk a little bit more about that a little bit. Okay, I want to kind of shift the narrative. For sure, comparison can be something that can definitely hold you back if you're using it in the wrong way. But I'm going to give you 3 particular ways today where comparing yourself to other people or comparing yourself in general could be something that can actually be helpful to you. Okay, so this is how I help develop champion athletes, is that we can look at a holistic picture of certain things that may have been roadblocks in the future, in the past, but we've created them to now be successful blocks for the future. So step 1 in how comparison can actually help you grow and develop into champion athletes. Here's step 1. So step 1, I want you to think about the idea of comparing yourself to other people, but only in a way where you're looking at it as a sense of motivation. Right? What if you saw someone, I know some people at the University of Washington, when we are working with athletes, we have these camps and everybody wants to go to the sis-based camps. It's something that is a phenomenal thing. We always sell out. We always have a great time. And I mean, sis-based is awesome. So why not compare ourselves to the path that she has taken to get to where she is now? Right? If we take a moment to think about it, sometimes we have to look at what other people are doing and seeing the path that they are taking. What are their steps and their roadblocks, and what are their hardships, and how are we teaching ourselves to overcome those things? Like, that would be really helpful to help myself be great at something, right? Wouldn't you think so? So instead of thinking about comparing yourself to other people always in a negative way, I want you to think about it maybe in a way that's going to actually help you grow in your success. So number 1 is it's okay to compare yourself to other people as long as you're using their tools to kind of help be resources for how you generate your own path and journey. Now, remember, that doesn't mean that you have to follow things that they do as far as what their strengths are, because remember, our biggest thing is that you are unique. And that means that you don't have to be what other people are, but you can definitely take some tips and tricks for what they are doing and how they got there. So I would encourage you to, number 1, consider comparing yourself to other people as long as it's in that vein of mind. Okay. The second thing I want you to think about when it comes to comparing yourself to other people, it's not actually comparing yourself to other people. It's actually comparison of your past self. So if we take a moment to look at the idea of our past self and maybe see where we've been, it's kind of cool to kind of compare where you are now to where you've been, hopefully, because hopefully where you've been is not where you are now. Hopefully you have progressed in some sort of way. Hopefully you have created some sort of blocks of steps that have helped you to grow and develop towards some sort of goal of success. For instance, I would say when I first decided to start this podcast, I started with this idea. And I started with this idea and I was like, okay, how do I make this something that's going to reach the people? How do I get it out to people so that they can listen to it and hopefully get some tips that will help them? I would also say, usually I post little small snippets of advice and someone put a bug in my ear, like, why don't you try a podcast? And so I thought about it and I said, okay, that's pretty cool. So what I've been able to do though in this process is that I look back at the things that I talked about before to create my sheets of things I'm going to talk to you about moving forward, right? It's a helpful guide to see where I can go and what direction I can listen to and what you all are actually paying attention to when I post. So when I compare myself to my past, I'm just thinking about all those types of things. Now, also, when you think about the past, you also want to consider some of the things that maybe you didn't do very well, right? We always say that like the best things happen on the other side of failure or fear, right? You learn in failure, right? You grow courageous in fear. So today, I will focus on the ability to look past my failures that I had in the past, so I can now grow and develop into the future. So that is another thing that I think is okay when you're thinking about comparing yourself from where you are now to where you have been. Now, the third tip that I'm going to talk about is this idea of looking into the future and comparing your current self to where you want to be, right? This is more of like having a vision, but in some regards, it's still comparison. I not only have to think about where I am, but where do I want to go, right? Where do I want to be? What steps do I want to take? Like, what is on my vision board of where I want to be? Now, for a lot of you guys who are listening on this call, that vision board might include, I want to go play college softball or college basketball or ice hockey or soccer, whatever it is. I want to go play that at the next level. And for some of you who are currently in college, you might be thinking about, well, what's my next step? I want to get into this degree program, or I want to have this sort of career. So what do I need to do to get there? So now I have to compare what that looks like to where I am so I can create these roadblocks and these paths and these habits and routines that are going to help me to get there. So comparison is not always bad, right? We now are creating these toolboxes for how we can grow and develop as people, as champions, as successful people who can own their power in the world. So remember that comparison can 100% be the thief of joy if we allow it, right? It can create jealousy and hardship, but it can also create growth. And that is what we want to be able to do. So today, if you want to be someone that's going to go somewhere, I want you to look at where you've been. I want you to take some advice from other people. I want you to see some of their past, and I want you to think about the vision that is for your future. As long as you're using comparison in that way, you can be successful. All right. I hope you guys have an awesome day. We will see you again next week. Thank you for tuning in. Peace.